Hello boys and girls. I'm in Sri Lanka. I'm on my way home back to the United Kingdom from Malaysia. So it's probably appropriate that this has happened here in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a Buddhist country. And so I've had a little bit of a synchronicity here, and a few things I wanted to address. The first thing is I wanted to talk about a concept that's been rolling around in the back of my head for a while, which is the notion of Kallisti. Again, like many useful things that I've got that I talk about on this channel, this comes from a client. The apple of discord is a reference to the golden apple of discord, which according to Greek mythology, the goddess Eris inscribed to the fairest, which is in ancient Greek is said Kallisti, and then she tossed it in the midst of the feast of the gods at the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, and sparked a vanity-fueled dispute amongst Hera, Athena and Aphrodite that eventually led to the Trojan War. So what this clever woman did, what Eris did, was she wrote to the fairest on a golden apple and then tossed it into this feast. And these goddesses saw it and said, well, that's clearly to me. And they're like, no, it's clearly to me because I'm clearly the fairest, and they tried to take it. And what this phrase has been in the back of my head ever since my client brought this up, and I realised that was what the essence of the story is. And the phrase, I can smell Kallisti, has been rocking around in my head. You know, I like to put together like little phrases that just remind me at a cognitive level of what I think is going on. So when I sense intense competition to be the fairest that is based on vanity, I always think, I've started thinking, I always think, recently I've started thinking, I can smell Kallisti here. Somebody realises that there is an apple to be won, and they think that that apple is theirs. Now, that vanity could be literal physical vanity, but what anybody who's studied narcissism to any degree will attest to is somebody who's just physically vain is actually quite harmless. I mean, they could be perfectly charming, as if all there is like physically vain. Intellectual vanity is a far deeper poison, and I think people who are addicted to a sense of themselves as being superior, that's the deepest poison. They're addicted to it, they need to be the best person there, and so therefore you have this Kallisti effect. Now, how does this tie in with little synchronicity to do with Buddhism? A different client, when she saw me reference the psychotherapeutic researcher who had borderline personality disorder herself, it's written Linehan, but I don't know if you pronounce it Linehan or Linehan, so I'm going to go with Linehan. No, that's ridiculous, it must be Linehan. This lady, she created something, dialectic behavioral therapy, which is a combination of Buddhism and psychotherapy. So that's interesting, isn't it? Yes, it is. I just happened to come across that when I was looking at potential treatments for borderline personality disorder. So there you go, I come across this lady's work and I go, I'll have to research more into that. That sounds cool. She's found a way that apparently works, is one form of therapy that works the best with people with borderline personality disorder, and it combines Buddhism and psychotherapeutic concepts. Also, that was of interest to me because somebody else contacted me and said, in terms of borderline personality disorder, you mentioned that objective constancy is a problem. How would you, this is another therapist who's contacted me, says, how would you deal with somebody who had weak objective constancy? What's a therapeutic option for them? And I thought about it, and my first response was, well, there isn't one. If you can't grasp that there's a world outside yourself, you're screwed. And then I thought, hang on a second, Zen meditation, in its purest form, Zen meditation tries to make the map the territory. So where we use that Korzybskian phrase, the map is not the territory, the ideas about the world that you have inside your head, your map, if they're not measuring up to the territory, the real world, then you have problems. That's actually effectively the definition of insanity. And the beautiful thing about Buddhism, and the beautiful thing about Zen Buddhism in particular, even though as I said the other day, it's probably not, if you take it undigested, that's a horrible thing to say, undiluted, please take it undigested, oh my god, if you take it undiluted, it's probably going to be of the wrong flavour for you, and it's probably going to make you go crazy. But to take concepts from Zen can be very, very useful, because Zen is the only system that I'm aware of that deliberately makes a practice like building a muscle of objective constancy. You could argue that the Western Greek tradition, like the Socratic method, does do that, but it doesn't give us like a daily practice, like doing your 30 push-ups every day. Well, you could do your 15 to 20 minutes of Zen meditation every day, or just do things mindfully every day, and your objective constancy will increase, and the territory will look more like the map, and the map will look more like the territory. If your thoughts about reality match reality, then you are reasonably sane. If there is a huge mismatch between your map and reality, a huge mismatch, mismatch of the map, then we could call that the definition of insanity. Okay, so that's where I was like, oh, okay, cool, you've got the objective constancy. I could see how mindfulness would help us to combat borderline personality disorder, perhaps even some types of schizophrenia, perhaps even narcissism. Perhaps you could actually, if there was motivation, be an ability to break through to a narcissist and say, look, objectively what you're doing is not very nice, it's abusive. Surely you can see that you're the key element of narcissism, I would say, if there is an option to make to bring narcissists back around, is to say, look, you're applying different rules to yourself than you do to everybody else. You've either got to admit, if they can admit that yes they do, and then admit that actually that's not cool, then you've probably got the basis for getting some leverage for a foothold for therapeutic progress. Maybe. So all these thoughts are rocking around inside my head. So I come to Sri Lanka, I'm staying in a hotel. This hotel isn't really finished. But it's nice enough, everybody's very friendly here. It's a very warm, Sri Lanka feels very warm, the attitude is very warm, the driving is crazy, and they're extremely aggressive on the roads, but the rest of the time they're very, very pleasant. People generally speaking so far, in my experience. So in the hotel, in the reception area, they have this little area where there are books. And really weirdly, like, maybe I'll take a picture of this, there's like homoerotic pictures of muscly men, like, stuck on the wall, then pictures of the Buddha, and then these bookshelves. So I was like, that's a really weird combination. So I go to the bookshelves and I start looking through the books, and a lot of the books are on foreign economies, psychotherapy, there's some Eric Berne books downstairs, and how Western psychotherapy ties in with Buddhism, and then just pure books on Buddhism, particularly Tibetan Buddhism, a lot of books downstairs on Tibetan Buddhism. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I go to my room, and I open up the internet, and one of my clients has referenced me to a Linehan, an article about Linehan, or Linehan, not sure how to pronounce her name, Linehan, we'll go with, and it was produced, I think it was the Washington Post, and I think this is where this lady is from, and it's all about how she came to create the style of therapy that she has called dialectical behavioural therapy, that is rooted in Buddhism and psychotherapeutic concepts. And she says in that article that at one point she entered an altered state of consciousness where she learned to value herself again, and she had this revelation through her practice of Catholicism. One day she had a revelation that she loved herself, and she's like, oh my God, I've actually just had the experience of valuing myself that she'd never had before ever in her life, and she only got there through prayer. She then goes on to talk about a concept that she has called radical acceptance, which is, it's an intrinsic part of her therapy. And I was looking at it, I was going, that's an intrinsic part of the way I do therapeutic methods and coaching and counselling as well. Radical acceptance means, rather than trying to paper over the cracks and say you're not miserable when you are, rather than trying to paper over the cracks and say, hey, stick a smiley face on it, kids, just put on a smiling mask and pretend that everything's okay when it's not, just admit your life sucks. Just admit you're fucking miserable right now. Just you need that radical acceptance first. Right now, things are shit. Right now, I'm in hell. That's an expression that she used. Now, I've used that expression recently, and it seems to have resonated, looking through the YouTube comments, with a few people, which is what the intense experience of having a self that is torn apart, that is literally just being pulled up, that's pulling itself apart all the time, is hellish. And I've tried to sort of talk to people about this, the experience of having the self pulled apart is worse than being physically beaten. Now, I can say that through personal experience because I did 10 years in the security industry, and my fearlessness in the face of physical conflict was rooted, I now realize, in neurosis, because I didn't care about myself and I was disassociated from myself. And I was like, I don't care what you do to me. There's nothing you can do to me in this fight right now that's going to be worse than what would happen to me on an average Tuesday afternoon, where I suddenly get hit with, I don't even know what the word would be to describe it. Like in Buddhist terms, it would be an attack of the dukkha's. You know, dukkha is the Buddhist word for suffering. I would just feel anxious, depressed, awful, and it was a hellish experience. So I'd go into fights and go on, punch me. What's that? Kick me. Yeah, I remember having a very, very zen moment of awareness in the middle of a fight where a guy had his thumb in my eye. And I was like, interesting. I wonder what this means. Now, I'm not telling you that to show off. I'm telling you that to describe a state of deep neurosis, and dissociation. I wouldn't be like that now. I have way more self-value now, and as a result of that, would be far more cowardly in a physical altercation, because I would fear the consequences. I'd be like, oh no, if I got kicked to death and died, that'd be a terrible waste. Whereas before, I'd be like, yeah, fuck it, whatever, just go for it. So there's almost like a necessity to be slightly mentally ill to handle large amounts of physical violence. And the people who were more, as I look back in my career in nightclub bouncer work, as some people call it, what we call door work, the more mentally ill people were, the better they were at the job. The more dissociated they were, the more full of, not even self-loathing, but almost like self-disinterest they were. Now, the roots of this, I realised, was when guys had happy relationships, they were shit dormant because they were more cowardly. But when guys had unhappy relationships, they were good dormant because they were fearless, because they had nothing to lose. There is as you probably hear the train passing. If you want to get to the beach here, at Wellawata Beach, Velavata as they call it, you have to walk across the train tracks to get there. It's crazy. And by the train tracks they go, beware of trains, and then there are pictures of people who've died on those tracks, like severed, like horrible, gory, real life pictures of severed limbs and a guy with his body cut in half. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll just tell me to watch the tracks. You don't need to show me what happens if I don't. Consequence, kids, consequence. So radical acceptance. So I realised that this woman had what I would call a real enlightenment, an enlightenment that comes from pain, an enlightenment that comes from the gutter, an enlightenment that comes from being in hell. Not some fake bullshit, middle class, Kallisti rooted, competitive, I want to be more spiritual than you enlightenment that is based on nothing. It's a form of spiritual materialism. It's like, oh, I got this, so now I have this. Do you have this? Oh, you don't have this? Oh, I have this. Yeah. No, it's foreign. Some hipster bullshit, like, it's foreign. You probably wouldn't understand. Yeah, it's called Buddhism. It's from a very far away land, and it's extremely old, and you probably wouldn't understand. And you laugh, but that is the attitude that I frequently come up against when I'm talking to people, especially from the West, who are into Buddhism. And just today, right, I'm getting to the coincidence in a second, just today I was thinking, why have I not been more involved in like that area of psychotherapy where Buddhism meets psychotherapy? What was it with me that just, and it was like, oh, maybe it was like a self-sabotage thing, and maybe it's because of your own problems over the years, you didn't want to get involved in something that would really work because you didn't really want to get better, etc., etc. All this Catholic, I can't escape my Catholic roots, so big piece of wet lettuce out, smack myself with it a little bit. Bad. So that thought was running through my mind, and then I go downstairs and I pick up these books on Western Buddhism, and fresh in my mind is the Linehan article where she says she went through a process of radical acceptance, and part of what she does with people is she went out and researched, and she wanted the worst cases. She was like, give me the people who, if you don't watch them right now, if the psychiatric nurses leave the room, they just start cutting themselves. They'll find like the edge of a bed to smash their heads on. They're super suicidal, super self-harm, and she worked with them. And one of the first things that she would make them go through is a state of radical acceptance and say, okay, your life sucks, right? Yes, it really sucks. Moment-to-moment existence is awful. Radical acceptance. So it's hers. And I looked it up. She first published that word, that expression, in 1993. So I pick up some books downstairs on, let me get to the freaking point. See, I didn't swear there, that's for you. So I pick up some books downstairs. I'm like, okay, I'll read through. Got a couple of hours to spare. Don't really, I'll just read through and do a little bit of study. So I flick through. One of them is called The Psychology of Awakening. And it's a series of different lecturers all talking about psychotherapy and Buddhism. And it's awful. Pretty much unreadable. It's basically a bunch of people competing to see who's the fucking cleverest, to see a bunch of Westerners competing to see who knows the most about Buddhism and the different schools of Buddhism. And I was reading articles at random and I was like, wow, I've never seen more hyperlinking and bullshit and posturing. And there was even a flavour of people trying to assume the master role. There was an awful lot of that flavour creeping in as they were talking. I was like, damn, this guy's starting to write like he's Yoda or something. What the fuck is this? He's supposed to be, like, who's this for? And how does this help the end user? How does this help me as the reader? I just feel like I'm watching somebody doing intellectual acrobatics in front of me. Like, okay, you know a lot about Buddhism. Good for you, bro. But how's this supposed, like, this doesn't help me. So I was flicking through. I was like, this is just junk. Went and looked on Amazon. Fantastic reviews. Okay, so I pick up another book. This one is by a lady called Tara, I can't remember her second name, and it's called Radical Acceptance, published in 2003, 10 years after Linehan has come out with this expression, radical acceptance. So I'm reading through and I go through the foreword and it says, it describes her life, her suffering and how she came to a point of revelation. She said, so I discovered this state that I call radical acceptance. And I was like, I'm sorry, that you call radical acceptance? Surely the researcher who went before you coined the term radical acceptance. And I was like, I smell Kallisti. So I go to the back of the book, the acknowledgements. Linehan, the lady's name, is not mentioned once. And I look through and they're both from the same, it looks like they're both residing in the same city. They're both in Washington, DC. And I'm like, well, this is odd. Like, you're using a phrase that somebody else has used, and if you put radical acceptance into Google, this lady's book comes first. And I'm like, oh, fucking hell. Here we are again, spiritual materialism. Here we are again. And I remembered, this is why I stayed away from people who are into Buddhism. This is why I didn't get involved in where Buddhism and psychotherapy intersects, and why it's very rare nowadays for me to pick up a book and read it from cover to cover on anything to do with psychology, because these academics and these book writers and these book sellers, some of these people are just booksellers. They're not even, calling them academics is a kindness and gives them way more credit than they deserve. They're booksellers, fundamentally, marketeers. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. There's a bunch of guys outside. There's some cricket on at the moment and somewhere, and everybody's cricket crazy right now, so they're playing outside noisily. Damn them, they're cricket playing. So I was reading through this and I was thinking, this is why I didn't get involved, because of this kind of competitiveness. How could you be spiritual and be competitive? How could you on the one hand be going, well, the Buddha said this, and on the other hand going, well, I know what the Buddha said more than you did, and all these people are competing with each other. Kallisti, it's this mad scrabble to be at the top of the heap. For what? To make money. And this is why I stayed out of it for years. I've just not gotten involved because I hate all that stuff. So leads me to my final point before I wrap this video up. I don't know which of these, apparently, also Radical Acceptance has like amazing reviews on Amazon. I'm not saying these books aren't good or that these books maybe won't help you, but I'm saying that I doubt the sincerity of the authors sometimes. You can't use somebody else's work and somebody else's phraseology and claim it as your own. Just give a reference. Just say, like the researcher, like the psychotherapist Linehan said in her concept of radical acceptance. You don't have to claim it as your own and push her out of the way. I'm so agitated, I'm sweating. What's the point of all this? The point of all this is to recognize it when it is happening. Realize when these things are coming up and be deeply suspicious of Kallisti. The battle to be the fairest. Now, some more people have complained about me swearing in the videos. The swearing serves two functions. One is it's to remind me that I'm supposed to be talking to you like a bloke in the pub, like some guy in the pub that you just met, or some guy that you just met at a coffee house or something. It's not supposed to, it's so that I don't talk down. It's so that I'm not going, well, in my experience, because of the enlightenments that I have enjoyed, this is what I think we should be doing, and I start talking like Master Yoda up on the fucking hill, when I don't know better than you. Maybe on some concepts I have maybe a clearer view, or a different view, or a new way of looking at stuff, but this whole thing of me trying to make myself better than other people is not going to help. The second thing it does is it filters. Look, if you don't like the swearing, just go and watch another video. These videos are completely free. I will not do pomposity, and I'm not going to sit here and start pretending I'm something that I'm not. Some of the psychotherapeutic models, as I mentioned before, involve a heavy reliance on picking up a big smiley mask and putting it on your face and just going, I'm okay. I really don't want to kill myself. I really feel good. I love my job, and I love my 2.5 kids and my 2 cars and mowing the lawn every Sunday, when really you don't. Inside you're screaming. The alternative to that Buddhism has given us, that I think that Buddhism becomes another trap, and perhaps an even bigger trap, especially for Westerners, is the passive Buddha face. You know, that face that's just like, this is the small smile. All smug. All is well in the world. No matter what's happening, all is well in the world. It's not you. Don't front. This is what I would say to the people when I'm teaching them on streetfightsecrets.com, my other project, when I'm teaching people how to fight. I'll just say to them, don't front. Don't front. Don't front. Because if you do, eventually somebody or some situation is going to call you on it, and you won't have the hand to play that you were faking that you did have, and then you'll be royally fucked. So the second reason for swearing is to filter people who want a guru. I'm not a guru. That will never happen. I would rather smash the entire project to the floor and have it just completely just gone, just turn to ashes, than ever fall into that trap of letting people push me onto a pedestal. One final point about that is, don't be too enthusiastic when you're telling me how much you love my videos. I'll tell you why I don't like it. The reason why I don't like it, as we discussed with borderline and narcissistic personality disorder, there is a distinct cycle of idealization, devaluation, and then discarding. And I've seen this. I've been in a role of teaching people now for over 10 years. And I first noticed this when I was teaching self-defense on the streetfightsecrets.com project. If I had people come along who were like frothing and gushing with their enthusiasm for how awesome I was, I learned to distrust them, because those same people 2, 3, 6 months later would hate me, absolutely hate me. There is a principle in Sufism to do with emotion, and how intense love is the flip side of intense hate, and intense hate is the flip side of intense love. The opposite of hate is not love. The opposite of hate is indifference. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is just detachment and indifference. So it freaks me out when people come too strong. We've already had it on this channel where people go, oh my God, this is wonderful, this is amazing. Oh, he's awful, he's the devil, he's a narcissist, he's just an awful person. So don't come at me too strong with all that enthusiasm, because it does freak me out, and it makes me very, very paranoid that within 6 weeks' time you'll be writing all over the internet what a dreadful person I am. Just be cool. And I mean that, maybe you could take it in a Buddhist sense. Be detached, be calm, stay centered. If there's value there and you want to take from it, then take from it. If you want to tell me you enjoyed the videos, then just, if I'm trying to tell, I have people who I admire, but if I contact them, I'm not frothing with a really intense, I fucking love you, you're amazing. I'll just say, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. This is good stuff. Thanks very much for uploading the video, or thanks for writing that book, or thanks for doing that ebook. Really helped me. Thank you very much, and goodbye. And that's what you should be looking for, I guess. In a Buddhist sense, that would be a detached way of showing appreciation rather than an attached way of showing appreciation. But yeah, the swearing thing is important for me. It's very important that I talk naturally. It's very important that I don't fall into a role of trying to be somebody's guru or trying to be somebody's daddy figure, because it's extremely dangerous. It's very sick, and I know it's what people want. And even though people won't admit it to themselves, they'll try and push me into that role via the back door, and I have to fight that. So that's why the swearing keeps me off the pedestal. I could be excessively self-deprecating, but you'd see through that, and it can end up being its own form of vanity anyway. So 2 things to watch out for. One is Kallisti in any endeavor. And the second thing is that I really wanted to say is to, when you're looking into this whole space where Buddhism and psychotherapy come together, look, the main thing is this, and I could probably, there are books out there, clearly, there's full of words, full of long words and sentences that are barely legible because they're trying so hard to be clever. It comes down to this: Buddhism gives us the opposite of what the Western medical, mechanical, mechanistic model gives us. The Western model is fantastic. It's break it down into its composite parts, see where things have gone wrong, pursue where they've gone wrong, identify them coldly with a scientific view, and then provide some kind of a cure or remedy for that. And we love that and we need it. The Eastern model, as in Eastern medicine, gives us a model of health and of happiness. So like if you study psychiatry, particularly abnormal psychology, it's just a list of how things go wrong. And it's incredibly depressing to do that. As a human being who wants to heal other people and help them, to study how people have gone wrong is incredibly depressing. So we need a model for sanity and we need a model for mental health. And Buddhism gives us that. This is the method to be more sane. It's not really a model for being happy per se. There isn't much written in Buddhism about how to be happy, how to be full of joy and that kind of thing. There is no superego injunction to enjoy there. But there is a methodology that says, hey, be detached. Get out of there's a lot of talk of circles and cycles in Buddhism. Circles and cycles. There seems to be something intrinsic to madness and cycling. Like I mentioned before, the cycle of idealization, devaluation, and then discarding. That's a cycle. And in Buddhism, they talk about cycles. There's a lot of talk about karma, and then it all gets very mystic, and then we have to talk about supernatural things like whether we're really living multiple lives or whether we're just living one life, and then we have to make a choice between the two. Somebody very close to me pointed out. She said it by accident a couple of years ago. It was like a slip of the tongue. And then we looked at what she said and realised that it kind of made sense. She said, you've already lived many lives. And I was like, oh, you're going weird on me. And she went, no, what I meant to say is, she meant me, you've already lived many roles in this life. You've already done this, you worked in this country, you did that, you did that, you did that, you did that, you did that. And that was her way of saying you've already worn a lot of different hats. You've already had a lot of different hats in this life that gives you an ability to sort of see where a lot of different people are coming from. That's not the same thing. Like, I thought she was saying, you've already lived many lives. And I was like, yes, it's true. The weight of my wisdom is heavy. I'm a bodhisattva. I came back here just to help other people who are suffering. I could have gone to Nirvana, but I chose not to. How worthy of me. And no, that wasn't what she was saying. She was saying, you've already filled a lot of roles, so you have a perspective that allows you to speak to different people. But when it comes to past lives and karma, we can, if the idea of whether we reincarnate or not is driving you crazy, just drop it. Just say, yeah, we do live many lives within this life. You are not the same person now as you were when you were 8. You're not the same person with the same thoughts and the same goals and the same habit patterns as you were, presumably, when you were 24. There are different things that you think about, different thoughts, different emotions you feel, a different approach to life. But all of this is rooted in karma, which is just cause and effect. You don't have to go all weird and supernatural on it. That's where I think Buddhism is potentially very dangerous for Westerners, is there is a foreignness to it, and everybody loves the foreign. That's not a Western, Westerners are obsessed with the foreign. No. Easterners are just as obsessed with the foreign. You see how, like, I remember I went to Paris. I did not like that place. I think it's one of the most overrated cities on the planet. But there is an obsession there, culturally, in terms of style, with the East. They love samurai culture, they love Japanese culture, they love all that, because it's foreign. Foreign can be in distance and in time, but the best foreign stuff is very far away in miles and very far away in time. That we love, we hyper-idealize. Easterners are the same. If you go to Malaysia, you'll find people talk the same way about Spain. They'll talk the same way about France. They'll be like, they'll even try and speak French really badly, and it's really cringe-inducing. But it can only be as cringe-inducing as you and I trying to speak Chinese or Japanese. to sound cool. You know, if it was posturing, trying to sound cool, so we throw out a little bit of Japanese in there. Yeah, some Japanese I picked up in Tokyo. You know, I've never been to Tokyo, so I can't say that. But you know what I'm saying? So there is a love of the foreign, and it's just a human pretense. The difference, I think, between East and West is there is and this is where I'm going to end up sounding like Zizek for a second, there is an ingrained cynicism towards the supernatural that we don't have, okay? So when they're talking about gods and goddesses and people flying around on chariots and killing each other in interstellar battles and the Buddha living many lives and everything, there is no preamble that says we're going to say this but we don't really believe it is true, in the sense of like, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to need to eat my breakfast and put my socks on. They don't need to say that because it's already inferred. We don't have that. We're a more modern, that sounds like we're more up. What I'm trying to say is we're a more newborn culture. So we're kind of dumber in some sense. More naive. Let me choose my language more carefully. We're more naive in some senses. So if you don't say, this is not literal, it's meant to be poetic, you know, I mentioned another video talking about biblical translations. I think a lot of the Bible really is meant to be taken as poetry, okay? It's definitely meant to be taken as poetry. It's definitely meant to be taken as an art form, poetry, satire, stories. It's not meant to, it's clearly not meant to be literally like rigid, this is what you should do. Some of it is meant to be literally rigid, this is what you should do, but the Bible is a shit ton of books, a shit ton of diary entries, a shit ton of plays and witness testament. It's a scrapbook basically. When you think of the Bible, and I say the word Bible, and you think of a black leather bound book inside of your head, you should actually be thinking of a whole load of scrolls of different sizes with different writing on them in different languages from all different ages, bound up in one big piece of messy rope. You should think of it as a mess. It will really help you understand it much better. So implicit in the East is this idea that you're not really supposed to take this stuff too literally. And that's one of the major things where we can fall down with Buddhism as Westerners. And the second thing is Buddhism can be used to paper over a shitload of cracks. You see this problem of porous ego boundaries and a lack of ability to assert yourself that often manifests simply as pure cowardice. We can paper over cowardice. Seriously, dude. We could paper, I don't even know what that is. It sounds like somebody's banging a marble on the floor and catching it. We could paper over a lot of our problems with Buddhism and say, oh yeah, you know, I'm being a bigger person, I'm not so attached to material things, I won't fight you on this. Yes, you can beat me and you can walk all over me and abuse me because I'm non-dualistic and there is no person here to be beaten, there is just a, you know, consciousness manifest, blah, 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 blah. It's nonsense, it's absolute bullshit. But we could call it Buddhism, or we could call it spirituality, and it's just a way of evading life and evading the reality of what we have to do. So it's not... Okay, I'll take that as a cue. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. Thank you for listening to me ramble on, and I hope that you found that useful. If you did, please write a comment in the comment section below. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you soon.